That's the sign. All right, we'll bring ourselves back to order here. Couple of things from closed session to mention. The board accepted with regrets the retirement of Mike Howard. He has been at Rolla Public Schools for 28 years, and we really appreciate him letting us know early so we can get on that hunt for another great soccer coach. Also, would like to mention the board selected the Belcher Scholarship Award winner for Rolla, and that is Maya Birkin, and she will continue on at the Missouri School Board Association at the regional level to compete and maybe even beyond. So congratulations, Maya. And we'll move into student recognitions.
Yes. Sudata Orr attended and performed at the All-National Honor Ensembles in Orlando, Florida in November. All-National Concert Band is hosted by the National Association of Music Educators, that's NAFME. The best high school musicians from every state send in a video audition to NAFME. Judges select musicians from those audition videos to perform with the National Honor Ensembles. The musicians come from all over the country and rehearse with a world-class conductor for 4 days in November each year, and on the last of those 4 days perform a concert. So congratulations, Sudata.
You're on TV.
Gotcha. A little bit of update on Sudata. He was selected for this because of his participation in the Missouri All-State Band a couple of years ago, and we just had auditions for it this past Saturday, and he's first alternate to the band, so he's still recognized as a Missouri State All-State Band member. Not that we wish ill will of anybody, but he was one off from actually performing, but it's still out of like 75, 80 tubas that day. He's like right there in the top 5, 6, so we're really proud of him. So that was an awesome accomplishment just this past week for Sudata. So we're blessed with very talented students. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, we'll move into questions from the floor. At this time, any person wishing to speak on any question previously discussed through administrative channels and not on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation to the board. Please state your name for the record. And I don't see anyone coming to the mic. Now we'll move on to presentations on agenda items. Any person wishing to speak on any items on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation. Please state your name for the record. And seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is utilized by the Rolla Board of Education as a means of dealing with routine matters which must be considered by the Board of Education but require a minimum of discussion. All Board of Education members receive and review written information supporting the items listed on the consent agenda well in advance of the meeting. While any Board of Education members welcome to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration or discussion for any reason, normally all items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion with a minimum of discussion.
Okay.
Before we approve those,
Yeah, Charlotte, I'd like to remove the music invoice for $589,116 and include approval of that payment with the new business item D, which is their contract.
very good. Music, just so folks know, that's our insurance.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily music.
Yeah, MUSIC.
So minus that specific check, could I get
I'll make a motion to approve that, less that check.
I'll
Items
second.
Items A through
J.
J.
I'll
Yes.
second that.
Thank you, Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, new business. Dr. Zaus will update the board on the process for setting the 2021 school calendar.
Well, the calendar draft has been out on the website since late November. And I asked Shannon just a few minutes ago whether she's heard anything, and she's not heard anything. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything, but we have heard nothing but positive.
Yep.
So we look to bring that before you in January, late January or early January. It really doesn't matter, but it matters to the sending schools so we can start to get the word out to them. so they can set their calendars for the Career Tech Center Consortium. So right now, as it sits on the website, that may be the way we go. So
And that draft is still there on the homepage.
it's still there. You got to scroll down a little bit to see it, but if you're looking for it, you can find it. Certainly taking comments still. But I think most people are happy because it starts late, it ends before Memorial Day, it preserves Christmas break, semester ends by Christmas, and spring break is left intact, and snow days are at the end. So,
Okay. Anything else?
Lauren, I don't know, you hearing anything?
Yeah, I've talked to some students about it. Overall, very positive. The only thing, not everyone is super excited about starting on a Monday. But after explaining to them, well, do you want to go into Christmas break? Do you want to start on a Friday and lose a weekend? They don't want to do those either. So best option possible. So that's the only negative thing I've heard. But after explaining it, no changes from anyone. Yeah.
I did hear a couple. I was at a meeting this Sunday night, and a couple of teachers that I talked to from the Kansas City area said they were concerned about compressing the first semester, have a few more hours and days in their calendar, but they're also said we're going to have to come back after break to give the finals to the students. I said, well, we decided not to do that. Interesting how everybody's attacking it, but it's a common discussion across the state.
Very good. We'll move on to our course description book. Mr. Hounsom will present the 2021 course description book for board approval.
So it's going to be that time of year when we start looking to next year already. So tonight, just presenting some changes to the course selection book that we'll be sharing with students when we return from Christmas break. That'd be fun. So first of all, a little bit about this process. This process, I guess, is never ending. It goes on year round to refine the selections that we offer at the high school RTI and RTC. But really for this process, the formal process begins in September, and we have initial meetings with the administrators and counselors from the high school RTI, RTC. They go back to their buildings and work with each department to review the course selections in each area for possible refinements. A series of meetings at the building level and district level to come up with any final changes that we'll be asking for your approval tonight. And really what we're looking for is, are there new courses that we need to offer? Are there current courses that need to be revised and altered in some way? And are there courses that we need to delete from our selections that either students aren't taking or no longer fit the need of high school students is really what we're trying to do. So, Myra, next slide. So for this year, I put the new courses and courses that we'd like to take out of our selection together, because some of these are tied together here and they kind of work in tandem. So the first change is at the high school science department. We would like to add Anatomy and Physiology 2. We'd like to add a second course. To make room for that in the schedule, we would be pulling out Fundamentals of Cellular Biology. Now, part of this is in working with the science department, there is a student interest and a need curriculum-wise to add the second Anatomy and Physiology course. The Fundamentals of Cellular Biology has not made the past few years. They don't feel it fits well into the sequence, and therefore students have not been signing up for it. So that's more hoping to get a science course that better fits the needs of students there at the high school. The second new course is Advanced Digital Art. I believe this is year 3 of offering digital art at the high school. We added that class when we made the transition to a 9 through 12 building. Interest has been strong. We've been looking at expanding that program for the past couple years. We believe now that we're at the point that we would have enough students sign up for that class, and so that would be another level of digital art at the high school. Introduction to Service Careers 2 is the extension of the program at RTI. This is the program for IEP students at RTI, a life skills class. It's offered to all of the sending schools free of charge, free of tuition. It's tied to the Perkins dollars. This is just an expansion of those services and expansion of that class. Next down is intensive ag science is tied to the deletion on the right-hand side of ag leadership and construction. Intensive ag science is a class designed for sophomores who did not get into the who did not elect to take ag science as a freshman. So the intensive ag science is a one-year catch-up class that's designed to cover the fundamentals of ag science 1 and ag science 2, which is 2 years worth of classes in 1 year, to get them back on track in the ag sequence. And this is a chance to get more kids into the ag program who maybe necessarily didn't sign up as freshmen. We would pull out ag leadership and construction. Again, that is a class that has not made and has low student interest, and they felt like this other class had greater benefit for students. Then we have a series of 4 classes and new classes on the left, exploring informational technology to add. And then we'll be deleting 3 classes on the right, web design, programming, PC hardware and operating system maintenance, and network administration. Now, let me say, so first of all, the new class is exploring informational technology. This is an exploratory class in the interest, obviously, of informational technology. This came out of discussions with their advisory group, and it's designed to give students an idea about all the things in information technology, which is the 3 classes on the right. The 3 classes on the right that we're taking out are embedded within our informational technology 1 and 2 3-hour block sequence. We offered these 3 classes as 1-hour blocks previously, trying to help with scheduling and numbers. But as Dr. Herman and Mrs. Duncan have gone through looking at the schedule, we're going to instead leave that information technology 1 and 2 as a 3-hour block. These classes are embedded within that, so they're not going away, but we are taking away the ability to take them as singletons. Students will still take them as part of the 3-hour program. Go back one just for a second. Before we move on past that, anything there that you have questions about, courses we'd like to add or courses we'd like to pull out of the course selection book? Okay. So, and just real quick, 3 courses that we'd like to do a little bit of name changes. We would like to change drafting and design 1 and 2 into architectural and mechanical design 1 and 2. Really the idea behind this is the learning expectations in drafting and design have changed to where we thought the name better captured what students are actually doing in drafting and design now. And it gave a little better description and perhaps a little more interesting description of what students are expected to do and be able to know and be able to do. Then with wood manufacturing and design and wood links career exploration, we used to have the basic class and then advanced 1 and advanced 2. Well, that just trying to clean up some naming conventions. So instead of advanced 1 and 2 and with a beginning class, we're just going to do a sequence of 1, 2, and 3 and just simplify things a little bit more. So just a simple name change. Okay, Myra? That's all of the changes I thought to highlight here. I would just put up on the screen the amount of dual credit opportunities available within the district. These are the classes that are offered at Rolla High School in the course description book for dual credit, in which students can elect to, if they wish, collect college hours while taking the high school class for a fee that is much better than you would get in taking these classes at the university level. I believe there are 29 courses on that screen that students can take at Rolla High School. Myra, next slide, please. Similar at RTI and RTC, this is a list of classes that are available for dual credit for students at RTI and RTC. So a lot of opportunities for students, a lot of ability to leave here with several college hours already in their pocket. Finally, I thought we would put up the advanced placement courses offered in the school district. There are 13 advanced placement courses that we offer for students, which is a nice selection. We have added a couple in the past few years. We've not added one this year, but a good selection from all areas, from the fine arts to math, science, history, all representations on our advanced placement classes. So the next steps with your approval tonight. Rutt. So this is the draft. This is the draft version here. We will print about 1,000 copies of these over Christmas break with your approval. We will have these available both in paper version for people to have in their hands and work through and make notes. It'll also be available online. When we excuse me, when we return from Christmas break, students will begin the scheduling process at the high school the third week of January in their advisory class. We'll be presenting screencasts and descriptions, and counselors will be working with kids through their 4-year plan. The high school already has their date set for the enrollment fair for students and parents to come learn about the classes. That's on January 29th, and we'll be advertising that more and more. But the scheduling process will start for students at the junior high, the high school, and then also at the K-8 sending schools that send their students to us each year. Obviously, it's important because we want to get schedules finalized. That helps us create a master schedule, which also leads into helping us with staffing determinations this spring and making sure that we have the proper teachers hired and all of those positions covered. So we're about to begin a very busy process in looking ahead to next year already in the continuous cycle that is a school year. So with that, I would take any questions that you have and ask for approval to move forward with the changes that I've outlined here tonight.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Hounsome? Okay, I need a motion to approve the 2021 course description book.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Carla.
I'll second.
Thanks, Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. And you're not going anywhere? Okay. Oh, great.
Great.
Well, next up is Mr. Hounsome again, presenting the assessment results and the annual performance report.
Oof, two directions. You did.
So this annual performance report is a bit of a math teacher's dream in the amount of numbers that we can go through here. So I've got this because we're going to come to some slides where I thought it would be really helpful for you to have these in your hands, and I'll reference the information that you have in your hand as we go. But I'm going to hit what I think will give you a good look at our APR for this year. Any questions, stop me along the way. I'm going to try not to delve way down in the weeds and take you into a math oblivion here. So stop me if I start doing that, but any questions, please don't hesitate. So this is a delayed release of the annual performance report as we've had for the past few years. The delay this year is due to a new science test, which had to go through level setting and a review of scores, which pushed the APR back. So I think it will be delayed for a couple more years, and then it will change. I'll get into all that. So Myra, next slide. So a little bit about the APR for this year. For those of you who have seen this in past years, you'll notice that the APR no longer works on a point system. They've simply removed the calculation of points from the APR, and we'll talk more about what that looks like. This system was built on a really solid foundation that worked on 3 years worth of scores in each of the subject areas. Due to some unforeseen changes, it is really, for lack of a better, it's really messed up this APR and made it hard to do because of the changes in testing over the years. What you're seeing here in this APR, we have 2 years of consistent math and ELA data within the APR. We have 1 year of consistent science data within the APR. We have no social studies data this year because this is a field test year for a new social studies test. And there's a new MSIP-6 APR process in the approval process with the state board. So what you're seeing is an APR that's in flux, that's in transition, and that was unfortunately weakened by the constant changes in our assessment system over the past few years. So that caused the reduction, the removal of points, quite frankly. But let's look at what's here. The APR is built on 5 goals, academic achievement, subgroup achievement, college and career readiness, attendance, and graduation rate. So we will look at a performance in all 5. But first, those first 2 goals are built exclusively on our district assessment data. So that's the first page of the handouts that I've given you there. On the screen is what's in your hand. Now, this is an overwhelming amount of numbers, but if we go through here, let me explain what you have, and it can be summarized pretty well. Each line represents a required test within the district, so a certain grade level and subject area test. As you move across, there are 4 score levels that each student can score: below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. So this slide has the number of students that are scoring at each of those levels on each of these required tests. The column that says percent, and the top line is 62.4% is the top one. That represents the percent of students who are scoring at the advanced or proficient level within the district on that particular assessment. Now, the state of Missouri used to use that number as the judge of how a district is performing, the percent of kids who cross that line to proficient or advanced. The state no longer uses that number. The state now uses the MPI, or the MAP Performance Index. A quick lesson, I promise, on the MAP Performance Index. Each of these score levels, below basic on up, are given a point value. Below basic is a 1-point score for the district for that student. Basic is a 3-point score. Proficient is a 4-point score. And advanced is a 5-point score. So 1, 3, 4, 5 are the points for each of the 4 levels. The MAP Performance Index, all it does is it adds up the total points for that particular grade level, divides by the number of students who took the test, and basically gives you an average. That they multiply it by 100 just to make it more fancy. Okay? But that first MPI in 3rd grade ELA of 362.7, that basically what that means is our students averaged a 3.62 score level on that 1, 3, 4, 5 scale. So in other words, the more kids that score higher, the MPI reflects going up. In just a couple of slides, I can give you a little more context about what a good MPI is and what we're shooting for. That's the negative. MPI is more accurate. It gives you a better reflection of how your district is doing. The bad part is it's very difficult to put in any context and to understand. So there's give and take with both there. But I'm going to put some context to it in just a moment. So for each test, we have all of those numbers. The 2 red columns, the column that says 18% and the column that says 18 MPI, that is a comparison of the scores from this past year, 2019, to those same tests in 2018. If the number is positive, that means our 2019 performance improved versus 2018 by either that percent of kids that were proficient or advanced, or by that MAP Performance Index when you calculate it. If it's negative, that means our 2019 performance dropped as compared to that same test the previous year. So one of the things that we do is we go through and we look at those numbers that are positive and those numbers that are negative. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit about the process here. I want to keep going through some numbers here, and then we'll talk a little bit about our process. I think I'll pause just for a second before I move on. Under each subject area, see, I've divided the subject areas up with the yellow bars. The yellow bars separate English, math, science, and social studies. In addition to each grade level, the bottom line of each section is labeled as DIST. That's the district overall score. So I tried to put a 1, 2, 3, and 4 there, but when I copied it, they didn't come out. But underneath district ELA, you can see that overall, the percentage from 19 to 18, we went up slightly, 0.6%, and our MAP Performance Index rose slightly, 2.8 points. Okay, that's overall district performance. That takes into account all the required tests in the district. If you go down one section, our district math scores rose 1.5% in proficient and advanced numbers, and our MAP index rose 2.6 points. That's overall math performance. We're not able to compare science because this was the first year we took the science test, and we'll look at science individually here in just a moment. And social studies, as I told you, we're not getting any social studies data because of the field test, okay? Finally, the last two blue columns on the side, that is a comparison to the Rolla district scores to the state number at that particular subject area and grade level. Okay, so that very top line, the third grade ELA scores, our scores were 13.7% above, or sorry, let me say it this way. We had 13.7% higher of kids scoring proficient and advanced than at the state level. Our MAP performance index for the district was almost 40 points higher than the average performance across the state of Missouri. So if the number is positive, that means that that's the gap between us and the state in a positive direction. If you see a negative number, that means that we are scoring below the state average in that particular test and area. Those numbers are summed up for each subject area overall on the last line that's labeled district. If you go all the way across, you can see our performance total in ELA is 6.7% above the state average and 22.3 MAP performance index points above the state average. Is how we would read that. You see the other areas there. I want to call special attention down to science only because this is the very first year we have given the science test. So these were the first set of scores. We had no idea how these would come out, but as you can see there, the science scores came out very strong, and we were happy to see that. Now, we will continue to build on that and on math and English, but I wanted to call those specifically because this is the first time we've seen results from the new science test. Scores across the state dropped dramatically, and they did for us as well on this test as compared to the old science test, but compared to the state, we performed very well. Okay? Now, just one more thing, and I'll take any questions you have about anything that's on here. The process when we get this, obviously the first thing we do when we open up all the numbers on DESI is what did our percent look like, and what did our MAP performance index look like. That's obviously the first thing we do. A good number or bad number by itself, there's really nothing to learn from that other than how you did. The learning then comes from the item analysis we receive. The item analysis means it breaks down each question on the assessment. It ties it to the grade level objective that question is tied to and gives us information about how our students performed on that objective. From there, that is really information that we take and then use as we go look at our curriculum and what's taught in our classrooms, and we look to see, are we giving those questions or those objectives, are we teaching them with the scope and sequence that we need to? Do we need to take a look at those areas that we're not performing well in? Can we figure out why? Are we not teaching it to the extent that we need? Are we not teaching it, are we not targeting that objective correctly? That's where we get our learning from. The scores itself really don't help you, but those item analysis reports do in conjunction with the scores. And so that's kind of the process that we're going through. As a reminder, the math and English, that's year 2 of a new test. So we took it once, we've now taken it twice, and we are continuing to try and refine our teaching and curriculum to a new set of expectations for our students. So that's kind of where we are. So I would take any questions about these assessment scores before we move into how these now go into our annual performance report.
I had a quick question.
Yes,
The elementary schools are all lumped together. Do you get the individual school scores?
I do have them individually, yeah.
And do you, as a rule, generally look at those to make sure
We do.
the 3 elementaries?
And I share out full third grade numbers with each of the buildings, and then, but I also share in that same spreadsheet, I share individual building numbers too. So we did have some interesting results with some instructional changes in some of the buildings last year, which were taken into account in possibly changes this year.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, Myra.
I think you have another question.
Oh, yes,
You're
I'm
good.
sorry, go ahead,
You're
go
good.
ahead, Carl.
No, I was just looking to see, it's great that we're higher than state overall, but it does look like the majority of our numbers are coming in at basic. Is that, how, am I reading that correctly? When I look at the numbers.
So over here, your total numbers?
Yeah, when I was kind of circling, looking at all the numbers, going down to basic.
Yeah, so the total numbers are on that last line that's labeled district.
District,
So like
okay.
in ELA, 193 total students were at below basic, 745 at basic, 676 at proficient, and advanced at 486. So the basic level is the highest level of scores that we have. And I would say that's true for most schools, especially with the new assessments that they wrote 2 years ago. They were designed to be more rigorous, and scores came down across the state. So I don't think that would be unusual at anywhere you see. So, and the way this score system is built, it's interesting how the state will take an educational philosophy and build mathematics behind it to give it weight and some credence. And I actually think that's kind of cool, but one of their philosophies is helping those students most in need. So I told you the score system is 1 point for below basic, and it's a 2-point jump up to 3 points for basic, 4 points for proficient, 5 points for advanced. They are really incentivizing moving kids from that below basic level at least up to basic. The thought, if you could at least get them to basic, then they'll functioning in society and will be successful. But they give a double point jump to incentivize school district to put programs in place to move kids from that lowest level up to at least the basic level.
So when you get information on the test questions, are you able to see how to move kids from one category, from below basic to basic, or from proficient to advanced?
No,
You
the
look at
only
that?
thing that we would see is the percent of our students that got that question right. So on that item, we would see if we have a very low score for our students, we know that something with that objective we need to take a look at. Now, it also could be, along with just the objective, they give you information about the depth that was asked, either at just a recall level or at a higher level where they have to do a little more with it. The type of question, whether it's multiple choice or whether it's a performance event where they have to do something. We take all of that into account in trying to understand the test scores about where we can make some changes in what we're teaching. But it's really just our performance on that item is really all we get out of it.
Okay.
Okay? All right, next slide. Okay, so these scores are put together to go into Standard 1 academic achievement. And in Standard 1, the state gives you information on 3 levels. Your status, and that's how high we're scoring, and that's the MAP Performance Index number. Okay, that's your status. How high did you score? They will give you information about your progress. That's the growth from year to year in that grade level score. Are your scores going up over time, staying flat, or going down? The third is growth, and that's a student-by-student look. That's a look at, based on where a student starts, are they making the expected amount of growth from year to year? Okay, so that's, again, they've taken 3 different educational philosophies about what it means to be a good school district and put mathematics behind it, although now they've stripped the mathematics out of it, so that kind of goes away. But in the past, I talked to you about hold harmless. Hold harmless was put in place because of the myriad of changes of standards and assessments over the years. Since they've now removed the point system out of the APR, they've removed the hold harmless, so we won't have any conversation about hold harmless any longer. I think I have this now, Myra. All right. I just didn't have, it wasn't turned on, so. All right. This slide is the second page that I put in your handout. This is the Standard 1 status targets. This gives some perspective as to the MAP Performance Index, what's strong and what needs work. So there are 4 levels that they put our overall subject area performance in: floor, approaching, on track, and target. You can see that school districts are shooting to get in the target category. I will tell you that's very difficult, and very few school districts live in that area. Most are in the on track category, and I'll show you where we are here in a moment. And then hopefully you're showing growth over time. Okay? So keep this handy, keep this out, and I'll show you our district score so you can kind of look on the scale and see where we are. As I said, this was designed to be built on a 3-year look at our scores. Across the top, ELA, and it didn't come across very clear, but that 2017 is in italics. It's in italics because that's the old test that we no longer take anymore. Beginning 2018 was the new assessment. But they take our 3 index scores, add them together to get a 3-year average. Our 3-year average is 370.4. That, if you look on the scale there, that puts us in the on-track category. For progress, they take the average of the first 2 years, which is 2017 and 18, compare it to the average of the second 2 years, which is 2018-19, and see if that's higher or not. Obviously, since 2018 is involved in both calculations, all they're really measuring is 2019 higher than 2017, is really all it is. So for English, we don't have any progress points. And our growth is at 48.4. The target that we are shooting for there is 50. So some perspective on that. A score of 50 means that your kids are hitting expected growth at the number 50. We are just short of that at 48.4. I will tell you, of all the numbers on the screen and all the numbers in our APR, that growth number is the one that we are most concerned with and we are trying to pay the most attention to. Progress over time with changing tests and with more rigorous tests probably isn't going to happen, but that individual student growth is what we're working on. A lot of that fits into why we are doing the NWEA assessment periodically throughout the year to try and get a better handle on consistent growth from year to year and throughout the year with our students. Okay? So that is the thing out of this APR that we are working, trying to address, is that growth number. See, math, a 3-year average of 345.6 is in the on-track category. Science, 364.7 is in the target. But I'll tell you, that goes back to the old assessment. If you look at that index of 344.6, this most recent one, and look on the chart,
It's approaching target.
that's going to be right there in the approaching. Okay, so social studies, no scores. Okay. Questions on now? This is all students on all required tests. This is lumping them all together from 3rd grade up to English 2, algebra, biology, and government. It's putting all the scores together and looking at the district overall as a whole. Okay? Questions on this slide before I move to so this is goal 1, academic achievement.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned the NWEA so we can improve our growth. Do we have a plan or process of what the teachers are supposed to do once they get the data?
So when they get the data, they will see students are showing they show high performance, low performance, high growth, low growth. So we'll separate their students into those are maybe performing at a very high level and showing tremendous growth, or staying flat, all the way down to students who are performing below grade level and are either showing high growth or low growth. The idea is to hopefully identify individual students who are struggling and remediate on an individual basis. Okay. I think it's probably more an individual attention issue rather than a systematic change in curriculum issue, although we could get there.
Thank you.
All right, standard 2. Pull out, you've got that in your sheet. I've just put the status targets if you want to pull that up. Standard 2 is subgroup academic achievement. So this is looking at the academic achievement of the 5 historically underperforming subgroups in Missouri. This is defined for all schools in Missouri. That's ELL, English Language Learner students, students with IEPs in special education, students with, who qualify for free and reduced lunches, African American students, and Hispanic students. Those are the 5 subgroups historically underperforming. This takes a look at how those 5 subgroups are performing in your district. Okay? ELA, 3-year MAP performance index of 332.4. That puts us in the on-track category. 2019 was not better than 2017, so our progress does not show as positive, and our growth is 48.2, which again, that magic number we're trying to hit is 50. Math, a 3-year average of 302, is in the on-track category as well. Same story with progress and growth. Science, 328.8 is in the on-track category. Did make some progress. Science actually uses a 2016 calculation in there to get 3 years worth of data. I didn't put it on the screen just because it didn't fit very well. So, but it's in there. And then social studies, no scores. Okay? So scoring on track with the kids in those subgroups. Again, the progress I'm not so worried about because that represents a change in tests from 2017 to 19. Again, the growth number is the thing that we're trying to work on. Related to this, for targeted schools in the new ESSA plan, they do look at your school. If you have a large enough subgroup within a school district, it looks at those kids and treats them as a school unto themselves. So at the junior high and high school, it takes a look at our special ed population. It takes their scores and treats them as if they were a standalone junior high or high school. And if your scores reach the level that would put a whole school in improvement with that subgroup, then it identifies that subgroup as being in improvement. We do have at the junior high and high school, we do have the first year of what's called a targeted school, looking at the performance of students with IEPs, looking at just their subgroup. I met with the junior high and high school staff last year. We have not received any information yet as to whether we hit the benchmark improvements in order to get a year of credit of improving. For the targeted schools, we have to hit certain benchmarks of improvement 2 out of the next 3 years. We're waiting to find out if we hit it this year to get a year of yes or not. We're hoping for a year of yes, another year of yes, and then we're done with it. But we'll see. But no information has come in yet on the targeted schools portion. Okay? All right. Move on to standard 3, if that's okay. All right. So if you'll get this status targets for standard 3 up, I'll explain what standard 3 is here on the next slide. This is college and career readiness. Let me put it in front of myself here as well. So 3.1 to 3.3 are our students' performance on the ACT, SAT, ASVAB assessment, the score levels. You can see those numbers. Basically, those numbers, if a student scores at a very proficient level, they get 1 point. Okay, they get 1 point for yes, you scored very well. Depending on how they score on the ACT, SAT, or ASVAB, they might earn 3/4 of a point, they might earn half a point, they might earn a 1/4 point. Okay, again, depending on their score level. What this does is it adds up the total points that our graduating seniors last year earned. This is for our graduating senior class. Adds up their total points, divides by the number of people in the class. This is the percent of our total points that we earned that we could have earned. Okay? A little complicated there, but basically we earned 76.4% of our total points. If you look at the score rubric for the status target, that puts us in the target category. 2019 was not higher than 2017, so it's not showing that we are making progress. But again, that's basically a 1-year comparison. 3.4 is our students' performance and participation in advanced placement classes, in technical skills assessment tests at RTI and RTC, in dual credit classes, and in Project Lead the Way classes and assessments. We have a 3-year average. Again, we earn 69.4% of our total points. That puts us well up in the target category. In the old days, when we earned points, we also would have received additional points for program expansion over at RTI and adding some of the new programs we've added. Here, it just denotes the fact that we did have program expansion, which is good. And then college and career placement, 3-year average of 86.3. And this is the percent of students after graduation that go on to either post-secondary education, post-secondary training, the military, or are completers of vocational programs who enter the workforce within the field that they completed their training in. Okay? 3-year average of 86.3. The target category there starts at 90. We've been living in the high to mid 80s forever. So we are in the on-track category. 2019 was not as strong as 2017, so we did not show any progress in that score. Okay.
How many students do we have in this category?
So this is for the graduating class this past year, which
Oh,
this
okay.
past graduating class was just right around 300.
300.
Part of that last one, the college and career placement, it's not only where did they go, it's also tracking everyone down, because anyone that you can't find and don't get a response from goes as a no. And so part of it is trying to get better at finding everyone, quite frankly. This is not part, I put in here a little bit about the ACT. This is not really part of our APR, but I thought I would include it. If you look at the last 5 years, going back to 2015, you can see the state numbers mirror the jump in state numbers mirrors the jump in local numbers. Those 3 years, 2016, 17, and 18, were the 3 years that the state provided a free ACT for every junior in Missouri. You see our numbers jumped and the state numbers jumped. Now, if you look at our composite during that time, as you might expect, as you are testing everyone rather than just those students who are highly interested in going to college, your composite does go down some, but it gives everyone the opportunity to get an ACT score. So you can see our composite stayed in the 21s, the states dropped down into the 20s. Last year, our graduating class of 2019, we had 178 students take it, and our composite, again, we no longer offered it to all students. Our composite jumped back up to 23.4. This year, thanks to you and the high school coming and asking, we are offering the ACT to all juniors again. Now, that won't be reflected until 2 years out on the APR because, again, these numbers represent your graduating class. Okay, so next year will still be a smaller number. The year after that, when this year's juniors graduate, we'll see the reflected for the full class participation. So very strong ACT performance by our students, continue to do very well. Standard 4, attendance. This is basically the percent of kids who are at school 90% of the time or more. The target the state sets for you is a 3-year average of 90%. You can see we're at 93.2. So we are all the way, this is, goal 4, we are all the way up in the target category. Not a lot to say there. We have good attendance, like to keep it that way. The last standard, standard 5, is the graduation rate. The state calculates the graduation rate at the 4-year mark, 5-year mark, 6-year mark, and 7-year mark. And really the difference is it looks back at the entering 9th grade cohort at that year and tracks them all the way through. The state target is 92%. So you can see we have the 5-year and 6-year right at the 92% mark, putting us in the target category. The 4-year and 7-year are slightly below. This is another area that we've worked a lot on, starting particularly this year, with the change in the alternative program over at RTI. We are actively out recruiting students who've dropped out in the past few years, trying to get them back in and understand the change in the program and the change and get them their diploma. We had one in the office today that Mr. Smith brought in that had dropped out due to alcohol issues, had taken over the student's life. She came in today to enroll for second semester. She's only a few credits short. We hope to get her in over at the alternative program and the Missouri Options program and get her graduated. We are trying to capture those students who, for whatever reason, have dropped out and get them back in to get them their diploma so that they can have some success. Okay, but you can see our graduation rate numbers there for the past few years, each of those yearly calculations. Okay? So, looking ahead, we are entering year 3 of the math and ELA assessment, so we're starting to get some type of trend and not just a snapshot. This will be year 2 of the new biology assessment, so that is still very new to us. Year 1 of the government assessment. We just gave the government assessment for the first time to our first semester government students this week. So those scores will be delayed. We won't get those back until later this summer after they go through a level setting and score setting process. We'll find out about that. Again, we are in a constant refinement of our curriculum and using assessment scores along with other data points within our school year to try and get better there. As I mentioned, we are in a period of flux. I believe that this APR will be used for the next 2 years, and we will have a new one introduced with different score guides and different scoring measures. And we'll learn everything all over again. But that's kind of the period that we're in here right now. So, again, I know that was a lot. Tried to hopefully hit the important points and summarize everything for you. Looking back through there, I'd be happy to take any questions about our annual performance report.
You explained it very well. Thank you.
Does this get summarized somehow? Or is this,
So here's what I would summarize. If the points were still there, I would tell you, of course, they don't calculate the points, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go calculate them. So for the past few years, we've been in the mid-90s, mid to upper 90s. That's the same spot that we would be in this year, especially with the hold harmless scores due to the transition in assessments. It makes it a little bit harder to calculate with those factored in there because you're going all the way back to 2014-15 when we had consistent scores. I'll also tell you, I probably peek around at some other APRs of friend districts of ours and compare, and I'll tell you that we perform very well. We have very strong academic performance. Our status levels, I'll tell you, what I'm seeing is that our status levels, our MAP performance index is the highest that I can find as far as our cohort districts, the ones that we compare ourselves to. That growth number, though, is the one that they are hitting and we aren't. So that is really the issue that we're trying to work on and figure out how can we get that up over the 50 mark. We're right there. We're at between 48 and 49, but we need to bump that up to that 50 mark is really what we're trying to work on. That's our area of emphasis. Okay?
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks.
We're going to move on to our insurance renewal. Missouri United School Insurance is the company, or the, how do you call it? Is it a company? Yes. Dr. Dare will present the information because clearly I don't have the details.
You got it?
Okay.
Page 57?
Yeah, page 57 in your packet, if you
I do
would.
have the details.
Just a few highlights for you. As Charlotte stated, it is the Missouri United School Insurance Council. It is a consortium, about 475 members, mostly school districts, but there are also community colleges and some of the education associations belong. So just take you through a little bit of the information that you have in your packet. On page 57, you'll see in that first box there our total renewal assessment at $640,344. There is a credit showing. The credit is a membership credit. Basically, once the actuarial data is analyzed in that, the board of directors determines the needed amount in the premium pool and will credit some of that back to the districts if it's possible. And so this will be our second year with an 8% credit. The group is very strong, so that's been kind of a trend for a while. A little bit about the property values that you see in the next box there. Music assesses the value of our buildings. That's a 3-year process. We just went through that a couple weeks ago. We don't have those new results yet, but they actually send someone down. They walk all the buildings, go through evaluating fire suppression systems and additions that we've had in the last 3 years and those kind of things. So that will adjust most likely. Our buses are a huge factor in that, obviously, and then our payroll helps determine things like workers' comp and general liability. So you'll see those there. One thing I would say on our property values, the buildings themselves are determined by music. The contents of our buildings are determined by us. And so up until a few years ago, kind of the industry standard was about $20 a square foot. That no longer replaces the contents of a building. With increased technologies, obviously there's more money sitting in every square foot of our buildings. So we have worked to increase those. So at this point, we have all of the main buildings at $28 a square foot. RTI and RTC classroom components are actually at $45 a square foot. And if you think about things like the x-ray equipment, the routers, those kind of things that we have, the square footages just don't compute out unless you bump that up. So if something were to ever happen, we would certainly want to replace our building, but we would also like to have things in the building when it's done. If you look at the bottom of page 58, you'll see a comparison of last year to this year. You'll see that even with the slight increase in adjustments that we made to our property calculations, we're actually down a little bit in our assessment. Primarily, that is due to a better workman's comp modification factor. So last year, we were at a 1.08. This year, we're at a 0.98. 1 is considered average. So if you're over 1, you get a little higher cost. If you're under 1, you get a little lower cost. So that's based on our utilization, and then they look at things where they determine if they're accidents or preventable accidents. And so we are working on some things with our staff to help try to keep that number under control. So that piece alone accounts for almost $21,000 of the premium. So that's something we watch very closely. And then if you look over on page 59, you see a full breakdown of those costs and where they're outlined. So again, you'll see our property and equipment, general liability, buses, and then our workers' comp. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If there aren't, we would respectfully request an approval of the insurance coverages and the payment of our premium.
Any other questions for Dr. Dare? Would like a motion to approve the new policy, but also the check that is in the packet, 10-149234. That's the check number, just so we make sure it's all included there together. So I need a motion to do.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tony.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. We'll look at our job description refinement for our deputy superintendent and assistant superintendent positions. Dr. Dare will present the change in job description for the assistant superintendent position and the deputy.
Okay, so those are in your packet also, pages 60 through 62, or 63 rather. So what I would tell you just in summary, we took both of the assistant superintendent's descriptions, went through, compared those, a lot of minor edits where we cleaned up language, tried to make them consistent in their appearance and their descriptors. Probably the biggest changes to the deputy piece would be the addition of a larger role with special education and early childhood. And then Craig and I also met and went through and discussed several things that weren't included on either, early childhood being a good example. That's a fairly new program, so it wasn't reflected in either place. So we talked through those pieces and made the coordinating changes there. So several changes, but nothing super drastic.
I was just glad to see line 30 in there.
Right.
Other duties
26
as
on the other.
assigned.
We have to have that.
We all love that in our job
right.
descriptions.
Got to have that in
Standard language.
That's right.
I didn't sneak anything in, just standard.
And this goes into effect for next year.
This would be for July 1, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any other questions for Dr. Dare on this one? Do I have a motion to approve those job descriptions?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Carla.
I'll second.
Thanks, Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Just take a look there at our future meeting dates. Thursday, January 9th and Thursday, January 23rd are in the next decade, our first meetings of the next decade. On to old business. Budget amendments. It's recommended to approve the FY 2020 budget amendments as proposed by Mrs. Atkinson.
Okay, so the updated budget document can be found on page 64 of the board packet with the summary and detailed data following. As is typical, a majority of the adjustments that have taken place since the last update simply transfers between funds or function object codes. Primary items of note this round are updates to the title program's budget and the budget supplement to account for the additional building trades instructor. And as a reminder, our original budget projected had an ending fund balance of 22.44% for the operating funds. This most recent update gives us a projected ending fund balance of 21.82%. And as a reminder, the floor for the operating balance is 17%.
Any questions for Kendra? Can I get a motion? Did you say something?
I said, nope, not at
Okay.
all.
I need a motion to approve the budget amendments.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tony.
I'll second.
Thanks, Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And long-range facility plans, Dr. Zalis, would you like to give us a little update?
Yeah, we met today as a carryover from the October 3rd board retreat work session where we dived into the survey information, local survey, and then made our planning path for excellence K-12 and then working toward an eventual tax issue which may come in April. Decision deadline for that is January 9th at board meeting. So today we took a deeper dive into the 7 projects. Our architect was here, as you well know, to present refined drawings of those 7 concepts, and then our financial advisors were here again today to expand the scope of the impact from a house valued at 125 to 200,000 in increments of 2 to 26 million. So kind of honing in on what we might do by January 9th. So that meeting we'll have to make a hard decision about hard and fast decision, not hard and fast, a well-informed decision about what we plan to, if we plan to put things before the voters on in April. So very good work today. A lot of numbers still to crunch and a lot of square footage to define. So that looks very positive.
Any other thoughts there?
So Lauren, you were unable to be with us, but I would happy to talk with you in greater detail. Yeah.
And we'll move on to comments. Lauren, and board members are welcome to comment on events in the school district. And we'll start with you.
Let me get my list out. Okay. So there's only about a week left of the semester, so not quite as much as normal, but I'll go over a few things. So first of all, there have been a lot of performances recently and a few more performances before the end of the school year. The band had their annual Christmas concert last night. So that was the high school band, the bands, and then also junior high. And the choir, the junior high and the high school choirs are having their annual holiday concert on December 16th. And that will be from 7 to 9 p.m. at First Baptist Church. And then something going on tonight, actually, is probably going to be a little bit too late, but the theater department is hosting their annual holiday show, and that is at the middle school auditorium from 7 to 10 p.m. But one thing I thought was really interesting about that is it's a collaboration of students all across the district. So it's high school, junior high, and middle school. I'm not quite sure about elementary. But one new thing with the holiday show this year is high school students from the theater department are directing the show. And so there's 2 students, seniors at the high school, who have been teaching all of the younger kids for the last month, maybe more, and directing those performances. So that was really interesting, I thought. And then also there are a few individual performances at the elementary schools. I couldn't find Truman's, but does anyone know about Truman having?
Theirs was
Have they
earlier this
already
week.
happened? Okay.
I saw it on their sign
Okay.
today.
So at Wyman, they're having a Kindermas concert, so kindergarten plus Christmas concert, on December 17th, and that will be from 5 to 6 p.m. And then Mark Twain, they are also having a kindergarten Christmas concert, and that will be December 13th from noon to 1. And then also, the junior high is hosting their 3rd annual snowball dance on December 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. I don't remember participating in that one. But so those are some fun things that have been going on, but then also athletics. So our winter sports are in full swing. A few things going on there. Our boys and girls basketball teams, they'll be having a varsity tournament over winter break. So it's their annual holiday tournament, and that will be Thursday, December 16th through Saturday.
26th.
Did I say 16th? Oh, 26th. Yes, thank you. I wrote 26th. Yes, okay. So Thursday, December 26th through Saturday, December 28th, and that will be all day at the high school. And then also, just to wrap things up, so finals week is next week at the high school. So from Wednesday through Friday, students will be taking their finals, and then it will be Christmas break, and we will be back on January 7th. So thank you.
Very good. Anybody want to comment on any of their visits or things that they've been a part of in the district? I'll call your attention to the written reports at the back of your packet. Also, some dates to remember. School board candidate filing begins Tuesday, December 17th, and it will close on January 21st. And our next board meeting's the 9th.
I did go to the junior high today. The parents provided the faculty with lunch, and I got invited along with a few others. They're sitting at either end of the table.
Just go where we're invited.
Just go
You
where
got
you're
invited.
right?
You got invited.
We did
Yes.
not invite
It
ourselves.
was very
We were
good.
invited, so we went.
So,
And I went to the band concert last night, and it was fantastic. The students did an awesome job.
And the performing that they're doing, collaboration of all the schools, they did some of that yesterday also at the middle school.
Okay.
They came over and did some, and
Right.
I stuck my head in there just for a little bit because I was over doing a different meeting, so I got to see a little bit of it. Back to the notice of school board candidate filing. There are 3 positions. I will not be filing. I will not be running, so hopefully there will be someone excellent out in the community that would like to sign up to run for the board. I know that the other 2 candidates are running. Mr. Rowley is late, so by the time I end my tenure in April, will be 15 years,
Oh, my
which
goodness.
I've really enjoyed, but it's time to let someone else come on the board, so I wanted to make that announcement.
Well, we definitely appreciate your service, and we'll miss you. I mean, I miss you
I
sitting right
will.
here already,
You will.
so.
You
I just,
can,
you know.
you can have her sit right.
That's my new position. I
That's
didn't tell
right.
y'all.
All right.
Jim, I think you wanted to mention an article that you brought from the paper.
I did, and
Yes.
I gave a copy.
Oh, well,
Corporal Gibbs
our
got
Officer
honored
Gibbs.
by the city council for his, I'll call it heroism.
Yes,
Call it that. Anyway,
that's right. Yes.
coming to the aid of a student.
Yeah,
Thank-
that was great.
It's great.
It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I'd like to congratulate, our superintendent-elect or selection of
Right.
Craig Townsend. We haven't announced that on,
Kind of
At a
been
meeting?
announced in
it's
social
been in the
media
new-
far and
It's been in the
wide.
newspaper, but, not at one of our meetings
Yes.
that took place after our last meeting. And,
Also to Dr. Dare.
Dr. Dare being, going into a new position as deputy superintendent, so,
More things to do.
so,
We don't want to be bored.
No, not at all. Well, we appreciate your service, Dr. Zales, and look forward to what our next leadership brings. And on that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Jane.
Second.
Thanks, Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And we're adjourned.
All right, girls and boys.